So a little bit ago, I did a video about what I dislike about Seattle and what I love about Seattle. Now I'm going to do a video about what I love about Tacoma. A lot of people ask this question of which, in terms of Seattle, like, how do you stand the weather and the gray skies, and how do you deal with the traffic, and how do you deal with this, and how do you deal with that, and are people really snooty and that type of thing. So, I've answered those questions. If you look at the comment section of those videos, you'll see the range of different questions that we have. But there is an alternative, and I am kind of on the fence about releasing this video only because of greed. I don't want people to actually discover Tacoma and to go down there. Now, to a lot of folks in Seattle, they have a negative view of Tacoma. They have this view that it's not, but now keep in mind, some of those same people have the same view about where we live in Greenwood. Greenwood's actually really, really nice. I'm going to do a video about Greenwood and show you the neighborhood and that type of thing. It's really nice. But when you understand kind of the Seattle vibe, if it doesn't look, and no offense to people in Ballard, but if it doesn't look like Ballard or Queen Anne or some of these other places, then people kind of feel like, ew, why would you want to be there? But if it starts to look like Greenwood, which is still a very nice area, Lake City, or any of those places, people kind of like turn their nose up. So really, you can't go by a lot of the comments that people say about Tacoma. That is, if you're coming from any other part of the country. Because to me, when I go to Tacoma, it by far looks very much like a Midwestern city. I mean, you probably saw the video about, me, the children, and of course Noe and I in Tacoma during Mother's Day. But downtown, to me, looks like a Midwestern city. Kansas City, Missouri, Cincinnati, you kind of get that vibe. St. Louis, it kind of gives you that vibe of that type of a city. Now, I have to say that Tacoma is by far more safer than those cities I just mentioned. And I can speak from personal experience. I lived in Cincinnati before, so I can tell you that right off the bat. I've been to Kansas City, haven't lived there, but been to Kansas City. It's got by far more crime. Indianapolis has a whole lot more crime than Tacoma does, but you kind of get that vibe. Tacoma also gives you the vibe of not only is it a small town, but it kind of is a big city. So let me just go through the list of why I like Tacoma. One, off the bat, is affordability. Tacoma is by far more affordable than Seattle. It's by far more affordable than anything north of the airport. You're not, and you're talking decent homes too. We're not talking nasty, gross houses. We're talking normal prices. So let's say you came from Atlanta, Georgia. You're coming from, I don't know, Des Moines, Iowa, and you come here to Tacoma. The house prices aren't going to make you pass out. Like, you look at them in Tacoma, you're like, okay, not bad. But if you go to like Seattle, you go to here, for example, and try to find a house, most people would probably pass out at the price of them. It's just very expensive. The average price here is 600 and something thousand. Down in Tacoma, it's a third of that. I mean, you can find a good house down in Tacoma for $200,000, $300,000, and it looks amazing. And likewise, you can find houses cheaper than that in the hundreds, like 150, 160,000, and it looks decent. It needs some work done on it, obviously. So if you're good with, woodworking and things like that and fixing things, you can get a pretty good deal. So that's one of the things. Tacoma is definitely affordable. It also has the neighborhoods have their own specific vibes. So similar to Seattle, but not as eclectic, I guess. You have several different types of communities there, from Hilltop to, what's it called? The name of the school. I can't think right now. But anyway, the Stadium District. So where Stadium High School and all that stuff is. So they're completely different. So you have those types. You have Ruston, which is a very expensive neighborhood, and of course, downtown is different. So you have the same vibe of different neighborhoods that have their own kind of unique feature to them. The third thing I like about Tacoma is that it's not, it's kind of spread out, but it's not crazy. You can get from point A to point B pretty quickly. If you're coming from a smaller city or something like that, and you don't like the rat race of Seattle, you don't like the very tight, dense packedness of Seattle, then Tacoma is more your thing. I mean, it really is easier to get across town in Tacoma. I mean, it's getting to be difficult, but it's still a lot easier to get across town pretty simply. Again, if you're coming from another city out in the Midwest or down south, and you're not used to places like a Portland or San Francisco or LA or Seattle, then Tacoma is kind of that break into that. It kind of adjusts you to life in the Pacific Northwest, I feel, in my opinion. Tacoma, people tend to be a lot nicer than in Seattle. And the reason why I say that is because people tend to be a little bit more down to earth. No matter if you go to some of the suburbs around there or just in the city itself, people tend to be a lot more laid back and just a lot more friendlier overall. So if that's one of the things that you're really interested in, then that's going to be your place to be. Food. Now, I mentioned this in the video that I put up about, the future of HershNoeie, what to expect. Tacoma's food, I love it. It has restaurants that you can't find in Seattle. Seattle doesn't allow certain things. Like, you won't find a Walmart in Seattle, not in the city limits. You won't find certain chain restaurants, things like that in the city. Some of those just have a hard time breaking into Seattle, but they're down in Tacoma. So if you're used to certain things, certain types of restaurants, chain restaurants, then Tacoma is your place. Tacoma also has, I think it just only has one mall. But of course, you got to keep in mind too, just to the north of that is South Center Mall, which is the largest mall, I believe, in the Pacific Northwest. So it's not far from Tacoma, so it has everything you need. But the Tacoma Mall does have a lot of great stores. If you want to go do some shopping and all that type of stuff, they have a Nordstrom there and things like that. So trust me, there's tons of stuff you can do at that mall. You can do a lot of shopping there. You would never have to leave Tacoma. Transportation. Now, here's the thing, and this is kind of a dislike. Driving from Tacoma to Seattle is murder. I mean, it really and truly makes you want to shoot yourself when you're in the car driving from Tacoma up to Seattle. The traffic is horrible. It's bad. I don't know how else to say it. It just completely sucks. You just don't want to really do it. Couple that with road construction, it's just bad. Very bad bottlenecks. Really, to be honest with you, anywhere on the freeways here is going to be painful for you. Whether you're going to Bellevue, going to Linwood, going down to Tacoma, anything that radiates out from Seattle it's horrible. Down in Tacoma, they're doing a lot of road construction, doing a lot of bridge work. They're doing a lot of infrastructure improvements. So that's a good thing for the future, but right now it's painful. But transportation down there is not bad. You can take the Sounder, which is the big commuter train. It has 7 cars, double-decker cars connected to it. It basically is the South Sound line, so it goes all the way from, I don't know, definitely from Tacoma all the way up to Seattle. And then from there, you have the North Sound line, which goes from Seattle all the way north to Everett. So you have this commuter train that goes several times during the day, several times in the afternoon. However, it doesn't travel on the weekends as of yet, but they're expanding the service and that type of thing. So that's how you can get back and forth and avoid the crazy crush of rush hour. Also, there are some buses that run directly from Seattle straight into, from Seattle to Tacoma and back and forth. So you have a lot of that too. Sometimes they're faster than the train, believe it or not. So that's always an option if you're commuting back and forth. So you and Tacoma has park and ride lots. So whether you're in Tacoma, Sumner, Puyallup, all of those suburbs that are outside of Kent, all of those suburbs outside of Tacoma and Seattle, you have a park and ride spot. So you can park your vehicle, get on the train, and go into Seattle, and then come back and do the exact same thing. So it's great there. But also, the very first modern streetcar, was put down in Tacoma. When we're talking about in the Washington State. So they started with what's called the Tacoma Link, which is a streetcar, but they put it on a dedicated line where most of the track is only exclusive to the train, so they can call it a light rail system. And those who are crazy fans about rail understand what I'm talking about. But basically, it will connect you from the Tacoma Dome all the way up, past the little university there, past the museum district, all the way north. And I forget where it actually ends, but it only has about 6 or 7 stops. Covers about 1.5 miles, a little over that. So it's really good. Now, the good thing about this is they're expanding it. So they're going to basically double the size of this line, and it's going to go all the way up, connect the hospital campus, which is a mile district of hospital, as they call it. And it's going to connect all the way through Hilltop, connecting that neighborhood to downtown. It's going to be a huge boom. The other thing that's going to happen in the future, if there's funding, which is called Sound Transit 3, is that the Central Link, which is basically the main light rail system in Seattle, is going to connect all the way down to Tacoma. So right at the Tacoma Dome. Now, this is when living in Tacoma is going to become difficult for people who have not moved there yet. The reason why I say that Tacoma is still relatively small, because, as I mentioned, traffic sucks. To get from Tacoma to Seattle, 30-minute drive, but it really can last much, much longer than that. It's bad traffic. I think it's about 30 miles. Is it 30 miles or 30 minutes? One of the two, but it's really, really bad. I think it's 30 miles, but it takes well over an hour to get into Seattle. So because of that, you don't have a whole lot of people that live down there. The only route that you have, really, is I-5. Whereas in Bellevue, you have a cluster of big companies there that made Bellevue what it is. Tacoma doesn't really have that. It's kind of like your working class community somewhat, more so than the others. The others, like Bellevue and Ballard, which is just a neighborhood, and then Seattle is where the big headquarters are. Tacoma, really not so much. It's more or less a working man's city, if you will. And so it has not experienced that massive growth. You don't see a whole lot of huge high-rises booming up out of the ground. Now, adding a train that leaves every 10 to 15 minutes is going to change that. Because with the light rail line that Seattle uses, it's pretty quick. And they've already started to extend it. There's going to be a new station opening up soon, past the airport. So it's getting closer and closer and closer. They have the money to go all the way down, I think, to Federal Way, which is not too far from Tacoma. So technically, if you lived in Tacoma, you could drive up to Federal Way, park your car, and then take the train all the way in. I think that money has been approved, but it hasn't been approved from Federal Way all the way down to the Tacoma Dome. So if that happens, Tacoma's going to probably explode because people are going to rush down there, cheap homes that you can purchase, that type of thing. The other thing that I really and truly love about Tacoma is the fact that you have a sense of community. People tend to rally behind each other more, it seems. They tend to actually care for each other. You can go to some of the neighborhoods and you can see kind of what I call the Seattle effect of where houses now start to look very similar to what they do in Seattle. And what I mean by that is it's just the landscaping. You see all these big, massive amounts of flowers everywhere and all of the spruced up lawns and things like that. So it is happening, but the sense of community that you see down there is really, really, really unique. Like, for example, there was one community that didn't have a community center for the longest time, and folks really rallied behind the project to get it going, and now that area has a really nice community center. For example, there's many others, but I really like that aspect of Tacoma. Uh, so that's kind of it. There's more to it. I mean, if you go downtown Tacoma, pretty decent nightlife. I mean, it's not like you're going to Vegas, by no means, but Tacoma has a decent nightlife. Has a lot of breweries. If you're into that, Seattle definitely has a lot of breweries. So if you're into breweries and you know, beers and things like that, Seattle's the place to be. Portland is somewhat the king of it. Seattle is getting there as well. But Tacoma has quite a few. There's a lot of brew houses and pubs right there in Tacoma. There's news every day about what's developing in Tacoma. They're building all types of apartment buildings and stuff like that. They're still somewhat basically mid-rises. It's not like Seattle with these 40-story buildings that they build every single month, it seems. But Tacoma is starting to get to that point of where neighborhoods are now starting to really morph and change. So, again, didn't really want to do this video because I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. Tacoma, to me, because I've lived in various different places from Indianapolis to Cincinnati. I lived in Bowling Green, Kentucky, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and to me, Tacoma beats all of those places I've lived at prior. It doesn't quite beat Seattle, in my opinion. It doesn't stand near a chance of beating Seattle because Seattle has a lot of big benefits. But Tacoma has a lot of great things. It's great for families, definitely. You know, it has Point Defiance Park, which is humongous. You want to do trails and outdoor stuff, Point Defiance Park. It has a massive zoo and aquarium there. Downtown has the largest cluster of museums of any other city in the state of Washington. So you have the Glass Museum, you have the Children's Museum, which is wonderful, small but really nice. You know, you have the art museum that's down there. You have a car museum that's there that a local built on his own. You have all these different things, the history museum, all right there in one tiny cluster. You have a whole lot of museums that you can actually go to, a lot of nice beaches that you can go to as well. So Tacoma has a lot of things that if you're a family person, you're looking for a budget, looking for a decent house that, you know, is affordable, good jobs. There's been a lot of jobs that's been opening up down there and also north of there. If you don't mind the commute up to Seattle, you're going to be pretty much doing really, really good. Overall, great place for families, a lot of great places to eat, a lot of outdoor activities that you can actually be a part of. So overall, Tacoma is a great place. One of the reasons why we're going to move there. Now, I will have a video, of course, that talks about what I do not like about Tacoma. Again, just the same with Seattle. The like is by far greater than the dislike, but I will do that video. Until next time, I'll see you. Take care.